Love and relationships can bring out the very best in us, but they can also test us in ways nothing else can. We laugh with the people we love, we grow with them, and sometimes we hurt because of them. And it's in those moments of joy, tension, and even conflict that the ancient wisdom of Stoicism shines the brightest. The Stoics, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, believed that the quality of our relationships is not determined by what others do, but by how we choose to act within them. They taught that if we live by four guiding virtues, wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice, we can transform the way we love, the way we relate, and the way we build lasting bonds. In this video, we're going to explore each of these virtues, one by one, and see how they can help us create stronger, healthier, and more meaningful relationships today. And don't worry, this isn't about being cold or detached. It's about learning to love with clarity, with balance, and with strength. So let's begin where the Stoics believed everything starts, with wisdom. Number 1, wisdom in love. Wisdom in love is where everything begins, because it gives us the ability to see things clearly without letting our emotions or assumptions blur our vision. The Stoics believed wisdom was the most important virtue, and they often placed it right at the center of a good life. In relationships, wisdom allows us to look beyond surface emotions, like anger, jealousy, or frustration, and instead understand what is really happening. It gives us perspective. And when we have perspective, we can make choices that protect our relationships instead of damaging them. Think about how easy it is to jump to conclusions when someone we love upsets us. Maybe your partner didn't reply to your message quickly. Without wisdom, the mind might instantly say, "They must be ignoring me," or "They don't care about me anymore." But wisdom slows us down. It says, "Wait, let's look at this more calmly. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they're tired. Maybe it has nothing to do with how much they care." That pause, that ability to step back, is wisdom at work, and it protects the relationship from unnecessary conflict. Wisdom also helps us understand human nature. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves that people act from their own experiences, their own emotions, and their own struggles. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about this, reminding himself not to get angry with others, because everyone is shaped by their own understanding of the world. In love, wisdom means recognizing that your partner, your family, or your friends will sometimes fail, just as you do. They'll forget things. They'll get frustrated. They'll have bad days. Instead of taking every mistake personally, wisdom helps us accept that this is simply part of being human. Here's a practical example. Imagine you and your partner have an argument about money. Without wisdom, the argument quickly becomes personal. You might think, "They never listen," or "They don't respect me." But wisdom reminds you, hold on, we're not enemies here. We both just want to feel secure. We're just looking at the problem differently. That shift in perspective changes the tone of the conversation. Instead of fighting against each other, you begin to solve the problem together. That is wisdom turning conflict into connection. Wisdom also gives us patience. Relationships often test us with delays, with misunderstandings, or repeated challenges. Without wisdom, we may feel the urge to snap or to give up. But wisdom reminds us that growth takes time, both our growth and the growth of others. For example, if a child keeps struggling in school, wisdom stops a parent from lashing out in anger. Instead, it guides them to ask, "How can I support them? What do they need from me right now?" That patient, thoughtful response not only helps the child learn, it strengthens the bond between them. Another gift of wisdom is that it helps us see the difference between what really matters and what doesn't. The Stoics would call this understanding the value of things. In love, this means we don't get stuck on small annoyances, like someone leaving dishes in the sink or forgetting to close the door. Wisdom helps us ask, is this worth damaging the relationship over, or can I let it go? By focusing on what truly matters, trust, respect, kindness, we prevent small issues from growing into major cracks. Indeed, wisdom also teaches us to communicate better. When emotions run high, it's easy to blurt out words that wound. But wisdom pauses and asks, what is the best way to say this? Will my words heal or will they harm? For example, instead of saying, you never listen to me, wisdom guides us to say, I feel unheard when this happens. Can we work on it together? The difference is subtle but powerful. The first attacks, the second invites. And that small change often makes the difference between conflict and connection. The Stoics taught that wisdom is not just knowledge, it's knowledge applied to life. It's not enough to read books or memorize quotes. Wisdom is proven in how we act, especially under pressure. And nowhere is that tested more than in our relationships. So if we want love that lasts, families that stay strong, and friendships that endure, we need wisdom first. It clears the fog. It slows the rush of emotions. It shows us what is really in front of us. Wisdom doesn't make problems disappear, but it gives us the vision to handle them with calm, with fairness, and with compassion. And here's the thing, wisdom isn't cold. It doesn't strip love of its warmth. It actually makes love warmer, because it allows us to love without distortion, without blind reactions. Wisdom says, see clearly, then act kindly. And that, more than anything, is what builds the kind of relationships the Stoics believed in. Wisdom gives us the clarity to see what's really happening in our relationships. But clarity alone isn't enough. Once we see the truth, we have to act on it. And that's where courage comes in. Because it takes courage to have the hard conversations we'd rather avoid. It takes courage to admit when we're wrong, or to set boundaries when they're needed. And it takes courage to stay open and vulnerable with the people we love, even when fear or pride tells us to shut down. So let's talk about courage, the second Stoic virtue, and the one that gives love the strength it needs to endure. If you're ready to start practicing wisdom in your relationships, drop the phrase, I choose wisdom, in the comments. That way, we'll know who's ready to take the first step before we move forward into courage. Number 2, courage in love. If wisdom gives us the clarity to see what is true, then courage is what gives us the strength to act on it. The Stoics believed that without courage, no other virtue could fully come alive, because it's one thing to know what's right, and it's another to actually do it, especially when fear, discomfort, or vulnerability stand in the way. Think about relationships for a moment. It takes courage to be honest about your feelings, even when you're afraid of how the other person might react. It takes courage to set boundaries, to say, this is what I need, and this is what I cannot accept, even when it might cause conflict. And it takes courage to remain open, to love deeply and vulnerably, even when life has already shown you the pain of disappointment or loss. Courage in love isn't about dramatic, heroic gestures. It's about the small, everyday acts that require you to face discomfort instead of running from it. For example, imagine you've been avoiding a conversation with your partner about money or about something that's been bothering you. Wisdom tells you the conversation is necessary, but courage is what actually gets you to sit down, take a deep breath, and say, we need to talk. That moment may be uncomfortable, but it's in those moments that relationships grow stronger, because courage turns avoidance into honesty, and honesty builds trust. Seneca once said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And when it comes to relationships, sometimes even to love is an act of courage. To love someone is to accept risk. Risk of rejection, risk of disappointment, risk of loss. But without that risk, there can be no real intimacy. Courage doesn't remove fear. It teaches us to move forward in spite of fear. Think about forgiveness for a moment. It's easy to hold on to resentment. It feels safe, even powerful. But it takes courage to let go of anger and extend forgiveness. To say, "I will not let this wound control me any longer." That kind of courage heals not only the relationship, but also your own heart. Courage also shows up in parenting. It takes courage for a parent to admit mistakes to their children. Many parents fear that admitting wrong will make them lose respect. But in reality, the opposite is true. When a parent has the courage to say, "I was too harsh, I should have listened more carefully," they model humility and strength at the same time. And children grow up learning that real strength doesn't mean pretending to be perfect. It means being brave enough to own your flaws and grow. In friendships, courage can mean standing up for a friend when others criticize them. It can also mean telling a hard truth when silence would be easier. For example, a friend might be making choices that are destructive. Wisdom sees it, but only courage says, "I care about you too much to stay silent." Let's talk about this. That moment may feel risky. You may fear they'll pull away, but in the long run, courage strengthens bonds because it shows that love cares more about what is right than what is easy. The Stoics saw courage as essential to living with integrity. They didn't see it as fearlessness, but as the ability to remain steady in the face of fear. And that is exactly what relationships demand of us, because every meaningful relationship will test you at some point. There will be conflict, there will be loss, there will be moments when you feel exposed and vulnerable. Without courage, we withdraw. With courage, we lean in. And that's when love has the chance to deepen. So courage in relationships isn't about being bold for show. It's about having the bravery to stay present when it's tempting to run, to speak truth when silence feels safer, and to keep your heart open when it would be easier to close it. Now here's the thing. Courage without balance can easily tip into recklessness. That's why the Stoics taught that courage must always walk hand in hand with temperance, the virtue of self-control and moderation. Because it's not enough to be brave in love. We also need to know when to hold back, when to calm down, and when to choose peace over proving a point. So let's take the next step and explore temperance, and see how it helps us stay grounded, steady, and balanced in our relationships. And before we move forward, if you believe courage is something worth practicing in your relationships, type "I choose courage" in the comments. Let's see who's ready to step into love with bravery. Number 3, temperance in love. If wisdom helps us see clearly and courage gives us the strength to act, then temperance is what keeps our actions balanced. The Stoics saw temperance as self-control, moderation, and harmony. It's the ability to hold yourself steady when emotions want to push you too far. In relationships, temperance is what keeps us from saying things we'll regret, or from letting desire, anger, or jealousy run away with us. Think about the last time you were in an argument. Maybe your heart was racing, your voice rising, and in the heat of the moment, you wanted to lash out. Without temperance, those words would fly, and once spoken, they can't be taken back. But temperance steps in like a calm hand on the shoulder. It whispers, "Wait, slow down, think before you speak." That pause, small as it may be, often saves relationships from deep wounds. Temperance also shows up in the way we handle desire and attachment. In love, it's easy to get swept up in passion, to let attraction or excitement blur our judgment. The Stoics didn't say desire was bad, but they warned against letting it control us. Because when we're ruled by desire, we stop seeing the other person clearly. We might demand too much, cling too tightly, or expect them to fill every empty space in us. Temperance brings balance back. It reminds us that love is healthiest when both people remain whole and steady. For example, in a new relationship, you might feel the urge to text constantly, to pour every ounce of energy into that person. But temperance reminds you to keep your independence too, to nurture your friendships, your passions, your goals. That balance keeps love from turning into dependency and instead allows it to grow with strength and freedom. The Stoics also connected temperance to emotional regulation. Life is unpredictable. Our partners, our children, our families, they will disappoint us at times. Without temperance, disappointment quickly turns into anger or despair. But temperance helps us recognize, I can't control what just happened, but I can control how I respond to it. Picture this. A teenager comes home late, hours past curfew. A parent without temperance might explode, yelling, punishing harshly, saying things in anger that later cause regret. But a parent with temperance takes a deep breath, acknowledges their frustration, and then responds with firmness and calm. That self-control doesn't mean being weak. It means being strong enough to lead with reason instead of rage. And that's what teaches the child not just about rules, but about emotional maturity. Temperance is also vital in how we communicate. So many conflicts in relationships escalate, not because of the issue itself, but because of how it's handled. Without temperance, voices rise, insults are thrown, and the argument becomes a battle to win. But temperance reminds us, this isn't about victory, it's about understanding. So instead of shouting, we lower our voice. Instead of interrupting, we listen. That shift doesn't just calm the conflict, it often dissolves it completely. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." Temperance is what makes this possible in love. It allows us to enjoy our relationships without suffocating them with expectations. It lets us laugh with our partner today instead of worrying endlessly about tomorrow. It helps us savor a meal with family instead of getting lost in stress about work. And temperance isn't about holding back feelings, it's about guiding them so they don't control us. Imagine a friend makes a mistake that hurts you. Without temperance, you might cut them off completely, burning a bridge in the heat of emotion. But with temperance, you can feel the hurt, take time to process it, and then approach them with honesty and care. That balance allows the relationship not only to survive, but to grow stronger through forgiveness. In romantic love, temperance keeps passion from turning into obsession. It's what allows you to love deeply without losing yourself. For example, if your partner is busy with their own goals, temperance helps you support them instead of demanding constant attention. This balance creates space where both partners can thrive individually, while still nurturing the bond between them. The Stoics often said that temperance is freedom, because if you can control your impulses, no one else controls you. And in relationships, that freedom is priceless. It means your peace of mind doesn't rise and fall with every mood of another person. It means you can stay calm in chaos, steady in storms, and present with the people you love, instead of being swept away by every passing emotion. So temperance is not about being cold. It's not about shutting down emotions. It's about balance. Loving fully, but not clinging. Caring deeply, but not losing yourself. Speaking honestly, but with kindness. It's what keeps love steady through the highs and lows. But here's the truth. Temperance alone isn't enough. Because love and relationships aren't just about balance within ourselves. They are also about fairness between us and others. And that's where the fourth Stoic virtue comes in: justice. Justice is about treating others with dignity, respect, and fairness. It's about building relationships not on selfishness or control, but on equality and mutual care. So let's step into the next virtue and discover how justice shapes the foundation of strong, enduring love. And before we move on, if temperance is something you know you need more of in your relationships, type "I choose balance" in the comments. Let's see who's ready to bring more harmony into their love and family life. Number 4, justice in love. Justice in love is about fairness, respect, and giving each person the dignity they deserve. The Stoics didn't see justice only as something for courts or politics. They believed justice was one of the 4 pillars of a virtuous life, a principle that should guide how we treat every human being, especially those closest to us. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that human beings were made for one another. That means fairness isn't optional. It's essential to every healthy bond. So what does justice look like in relationships? It starts with recognizing that our partners, our family, and our friends are not here to serve us. Their needs, feelings, and dreams matter just as much as our own. Justice in love says, "I will not use you. I will not manipulate you. I will not take advantage of you. Instead, I will honor you as an equal human being, walking this path beside me." Imagine a couple planning their future. Without justice, one partner might dominate the conversation. Their career, their goals, their comfort always come first. The other partner gets pushed aside, and over time, resentment grows. But when justice is present, the dynamic shifts. Both partners listen, both voices are heard, and even if the solution isn't perfect, there's dignity in the process, because each person knows their perspective matters. Seneca once wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." And in relationships, kindness and fairness always walk hand in hand. Justice shows up in the daily things: sharing responsibilities, showing appreciation, and giving space for one another's growth. It's not about my way or your way, but about finding our way. Justice also means accountability. We can't demand patience, respect, or forgiveness from others if we aren't willing to offer the same in return. If we expect our partner to understand our struggles, we must also understand theirs. If we want family members to value our efforts, we must also value theirs. Justice balances the scales, so respect is never one-sided. Friendships too thrive on justice. A friendship built on fairness doesn't ask, "What can I get out of this?" It values honesty, loyalty, and trust. When a friend shares something in confidence, justice means guarding that trust, not using it for gossip or personal advantage. It means standing up for them when they're unfairly criticized. And yes, it also means having the courage to tell them hard truths when silence would be easier. Because true respect doesn't flatter. It speaks with honesty and care. Justice is also what keeps families strong. Parents practice justice when they set boundaries with fairness, not to dominate, but to guide with love. Children practice justice by honoring their parents, not blindly, but with respect for the sacrifices made. And siblings live out justice when they treat each other not as rivals, but as allies, sharing responsibilities instead of competing for them. The Stoics also tied justice to community. They believed that every relationship is part of a bigger whole, a society built on cooperation. So when we treat the people closest to us with justice, we're not just strengthening our private bonds, we're contributing to a culture of fairness that ripples outward. Think of a simple example at home. One partner does all the chores while the other does little. At first, it may seem small, but over time, it breeds bitterness. Justice steps in and says, "This isn't balanced. We both live here, so we must both contribute." And when things shift to fairness, the home becomes more than a space to live. It becomes a partnership rooted in respect. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." In love, the same is true. If a relationship becomes unfair for one person, it eventually damages both. But when fairness is restored, both individuals thrive and the bond between them grows stronger. Justice in love isn't about keeping score, and it's not about a strict 50-50 in every detail. It's about the spirit of fairness, making sure both people feel valued, respected, and seen. And when justice guides a relationship, trust naturally follows. And there you have it, the 4 Stoic virtues of love: wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. Together they create a foundation strong enough to carry us through conflict, through challenges, and even through loss. Wisdom gives us clarity, courage gives us strength, temperance gives us balance, and justice gives us fairness and harmony. Relationships will never be perfect. They'll always come with struggles, disappointments, and change. But when we live by these virtues, we don't just protect our relationships, we elevate them. So as you move forward, practice them in small ways every day. Pause before reacting. Speak truth with courage. Find balance when emotions run high.